Emily frequented the cozy cafe on Willow Street, drawn by its charm. And by him, the mysterious stranger with dark curls and a sketch pad. For weeks, she'd watched him from afar, weaving stories about who he might be. Today, heart racing, she looked up to see him at table 5, smiling nervously. Gathering her courage, she walked over. What happened next? Did he respond? Discover the story in The Coffee Shop on Willow Street by Tony Chen. It's a heartwarming tale. The soft aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air as Emily stepped into the quaint little cafe on Willow Street. It was her favorite spot in town, a cozy refuge with wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and a wall of books free for anyone to read. She ordered her usual, a caramel latte, and settled into the corner by the window, her laptop open but untouched. She wasn't here to work. She was here to watch him. The stranger with dark curly hair and an old leather jacket had started frequenting the cafe 3 weeks ago. He always brought a sketch pad, furrowing his brows as he scribbled furiously, occasionally brushing charcoal dust from his fingers. He was fascinating, and Emily had built countless imaginary stories about him in her head. Was he an artist? An architect? A brooding writer who preferred to sketch out his ideas first? Today, she decided, was the day she'd talk to him. But before she could muster the courage, the barista walked over and handed her a small napkin with a smile. From the guy at table 5, the barista whispered. Emily's heart raced as she unfolded the napkin. A sketch of her face stared back at her. Soft lines capturing her inquisitive eyes, the curve of her smile. Beneath it, scrawled in careful handwriting, were 3 words. Meet me here? She glanced toward table 5. And there he was, smiling nervously, the tip of his pencil tapping against the table. Her cheeks flushed, but she smiled back, clutching the napkin in her hands as she rose and walked toward him. I'm Emily, she said, trying not to sound too breathless. Oliver, he replied, standing up to shake her hand. His touch was warm, and his gaze held hers just long enough to make her feel both giddy and grounded. Emily, he said, her name rolling off his tongue like it belonged there. I hope you don't mind the sketch. I noticed you here a few times and, well, you're hard not to notice. Her cheeks flushed and she bit her lip to keep from grinning too widely. You noticed me? She asked, a hint of disbelief in her voice. I thought I was the one doing all the noticing. Oliver laughed softly, his voice low and comforting, like the hum of an old vinyl record. Noticing you is the easy part. Saying something? That took me 3 weeks. Emily tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the nervous habit betraying her calm facade. Well, I guess it's a good thing you're braver with a pencil than I am with words. Otherwise, we'd still be sitting at separate tables. They both laughed, the sound light and natural, like they'd been doing this for years. Why don't you sit? Oliver gestured toward the chair across from him. Unless you have somewhere else to be? Nowhere nearly as interesting as here, Emily said, taking the seat. She placed the napkin sketch carefully beside his sketch pad. So, how long have you been drawing strangers in cafes? Oliver leaned back, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. Not long, actually. I usually sketch landscapes or architecture. But then I saw you, and suddenly people seemed more interesting. Her heart fluttered at the way he said it, not as a line, but as something genuine, unpolished. She tilted her head. Why me, though? What made you pick up the pencil this time? He hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his words. I think it's the way you look out the window, he said finally. Like you're watching something no one else can see. I wanted to know what it was. Emily blinked, caught off guard by how easily he'd seen through her. I guess I've been daydreaming a lot, she admitted. About writing, mostly. About living the kind of life that's worth writing about? That's a good dream, Oliver said. He picked up his pencil and twirled it between his fingers. "What's stopping you?" She looked down at the table, tracing the edge of his sketch pad with her finger. "The usual stuff, I guess. Doubt, fear, wondering if I'm good enough." Oliver leaned forward, his gaze steady and serious now. "What if you are? What if the only thing stopping you is you?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy but not oppressive. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt seen. Not just for who she was, but for who she wanted to be. "Maybe," she said, her voice soft. "I just needed someone to ask me that." "Then keep me around," Oliver said with a crooked smile. "I'll make sure you keep asking yourself the right questions." Emily laughed softly, the sound warming the small space between them. "Keep you around, huh? Do you come with references?" Oliver tilted his head, pretending to ponder. "Well, my mom thinks I'm pretty great. My old art teacher said I was persistent, and the barista here hasn't kicked me out yet. How's that for a resume?" Emily grinned. "Solid credentials. I guess you're hired." "So, what's my first task as your personal motivator?" he asked, leaning forward slightly, his hands clasped on the table. "Well," Emily said, glancing out the window for a moment before meeting his gaze, "I've been stuck on this one scene for weeks. It's the part where the protagonist takes a leap of faith. Every time I try to write it, I get scared it won't feel real enough." Oliver arched an eyebrow. "A leap of faith, huh? Sounds like you've got some first-hand research to do." Emily narrowed her eyes playfully. "What are you suggesting?" He gestured toward the door with a mischievous smile. "Why don't we take one right now?" She blinked, caught off guard. "You mean, like, literally? Where would we even go?" "Does it matter?" Oliver asked, standing up and gathering his sketch pad. "Sometimes you just have to pick a direction and see where it takes you. Come on, Emily, let's write the scene together." Her heart skipped a beat at the way he said her name, like it was the start of an adventure. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before standing up and grabbing her bag. "All right, Oliver, lead the way." As they stepped out into the world beyond the cafe, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something real. For the first time in a long time, she was ready to take the leap.